Now we know Mark and Luke weren't one of the 12. They became disciples later. They would be the second generation of disciples. But Matthew and John, they were first generation disciples. They walked with the Mashiach. They knew, they beheld him. That's what Yohanan says in his first chapter of the Gospel of John, that the Word manifested in the flesh and they beheld him as one that was brought forth from the Father. Yes, Big Ren, Matthew is right. Let me show you. You'll see here. And again, not all translations do this. I'm going to show you guys right now from the King James and the scriptures, the difference. And here it is. Let's go to Matthew 28:1. So Matthew 28:1, it tells you, it literally shows you that the Messiah was not in the grave during the Shabbat. And I can show you through the calendar. That's the other thing. That is just amazing. When Yahuwah revealed that to me, I was like, wow, this is, and I'm not the only one. It's not like it was, I'm the one that's like, oh, and everybody else learned of me. No, that's not at all the truth. This has been revealed to many of us who are coming into this truth. So notice this. Matthew chapter 28, verse 1, it says, but late in the Sabbath. Does that mean that the Sabbath is over? No, it says it was late in the Sabbath. That'd be like me saying, but late or later on in the day, this happened. But the day isn't over. The day is still going on. So here it is. It says, but late in the Sabbath, as it was dawning into day one of the week. So day one of the week wasn't even there yet because it was just starting to appear. Hence the word dawning. We call dawn the morning in English. Okay? So now let me show you what it says in the King James Version. Same chapter, same verse. Here it is here, King James Version by the Gideons, the Gideon Bible, as they would call it. And it is a King James edition. Notice what it says here. See that? In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. In the end. So, by reading this, no wonder why everyone thinks that the Messiah was raised on the first day of the week. Again, let's look at Mark. Mark says the same thing. Mark 16. And when the Sabbath was past, notice that when it was past, saying that the Sabbath is done. So now we have a problem here. Which one is right, Matthew or Mark? Let's look at Luke. What does Luke say? Again, that's not me reading into it. It's telling you that the Sabbath was past tense, right? Sabbath is done. Okay. Just so we're all on the same page, let's look at Luke. What does Luke say? This is why I say you got to test all things. It has to go back to the Old Testament. Luke chapter 24. Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, right there, the Sabbath is not even mentioned. So again, it's inferring that the first day is there, and it's giving us the understanding as if the Messiah was raised on the first day of the week, which is why the reason why many of us, when we were Extians, we believed in a so-called Sunday service, because we said what? It was the Lord's day. It's the Lord's day. Let's look what Yohanan says about this same thing. So what am I saying? Is there differences? Is there issues in the New Testament? Yes, there is. Oh, let me go back one more chapter. I'm sorry, you guys. Notice here, verse 20, or chapter 20. The first day of the week comes Mary Magdalene, early. And that's not the only issue. Here it says that it was still dark. Here in Matthew or Mark, when it says the Sabbath was past, it says, and very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. So which one is it? Is it light out? Or is it dark, as it says in the book of Johanan in John? It says it was yet still dark when they came into the sepulcher. So this is why I say to people, and they would say, yeah, but the Bible is Yah's breath. No, the Old Testament is Yah's breath. He breathed. He spoke to the prophets as they was moved by the Ruach HaKodesh. You won't find that anywhere in the New Testament. Sorry. So yeah, we're going to find contradictions because it wasn't the people. It was those who transcribed what these people had seen, what they witnessed, what they're testifying. Again, you can see that the Catholic Church has an agenda that they were trying to bring out, which is the worship of the first day of the week, which they call Sunday. Which is why all of their holidays, well, not all, but most of them have something to do with the first day of the week, like Mother's Day. Why is it on a Sunday? Father's Day. Why is it on a Sunday? Easter. Why is it always on a Sunday? If you know what so-called Easter is supposed to represent, which they say is supposed to be Passover, but we know it's not Passover, and it has to do with Ashtoreth, has to do with Ishtar. But again, people are so gullible, right? We're so gullible that we just take it in because what the masses believe that. So we're going to believe the majority report and not the minority report. Let me tell you something. What happened when the 12 spies went out to spy at the land of Canaan? The negative report, they were the majority, but only two, Joshua and Caleb. They came back with a positive report. They came back believing that Yahuwah would give their enemies into their hands and they would take the promised land. So don't take the majority. In fact, usually the majority is wrong. What do they have in Spanish, Big Ren? And so, you know, this is again the reason why I say that we have to look into these things, even the Apocryphas. You're going to find contradictions. You have to look at it and line it up with the word. Brother Yosef, you asked a question. Can you please share your understanding if the book of Wisdom of Solomon, not the Songs of Solomon, you're talking about Wisdom of Solomon and the book of Proverbs line up? You know, I can't really speak on that, to be honest with you, Aki. The reason being is because I'd have to I've never took a side-by-side comparison of Proverbs and the Wisdom of Solomon. They're both supposed to be penned from Solomon. But you know what? That would be a great thing to look into as well, because I know there are a lot of people that are reading the Wisdom of Solomon. I would take you at your word, Aki Joseph, because I know you're an astute student. But of course, I say that in a joking fashion. Yes, I would have to read it myself as well, but I'm sure that you have a great keen of understanding of the word as well. So if you say it lines up, I'm sure I would find the same when I read it. Yes, now I do know that the Sefer has a Spanish version, if that's what you're asking. The Sefer has a Spanish translation, and they have the names in there like Yahuwah and Yahusha and Ruach HaKodesh. But even there, in the Sefer, I don't have one here right now with me. I gave mine to my niece, and I haven't done an actual side-by-side parallel comparison. But that would be interesting to see for those of you who might have it, to look into that. Yes, Big Ren. Yeah, it's for those who are coming into the truth in other languages, or especially in Spanish, which is another large population of the world. Sefer is a great translation for them to have to familiarize themselves with the name. So, again, going back to some of these contradictions that we find in the 4 gospel accounts, this is one thing that I prayed to Yahuwah about. I'm like, well, do I throw it away? Because I see that there's some issues with the resurrection account. And it was like it was deposited into my being, into my soul, like Yahuwah was saying to me. Not that I audibly heard him, but through my understanding of what he has given me, that I don't throw it away. What they all have in common, regardless of what they've done by twisting of the words, is that there was a death, there was a burial, and there was a resurrection of our Mashiach. As far as the details and what they got right and what they got wrong, truly that doesn't matter. What does matter is that he came back alive from the grave. Hey, Swank, nice to see you here, Aki Matthew. And so that is the important thing, is that our Mashiach was raised from the grave. Because if he didn't overcome the grave, then we're all in trouble. And so that is what holds these 4 gospel accounts to stay in my mind, where I can read it and, take in the meat and spit out the bones, as we would say. Where I see the contradictions, I look for the truth in it. What are the similarities? What do they all say in common? And that's how you have to kind of break the word up when you see that there are differences, right? Like we were talking about with Cain. One account says he died because, the house fell upon him, because he unalived his brother with the stones, so the stones of the house fell on him. Another one says that, what was it? If I can remember correctly, was it Lamech that took him out? He couldn't see him too clear because of his vision. And he died by the hands of Lamech with an arrow because his son had lied to him. So what do I take from that? Is that, yeah, Cain was taken out. How he was taken out, I don't know. But he was taken out nonetheless. So Victoria says, okay, I was wanting to buy a Sefer, but don't have money right now. I'm so excited. Well, yes, Sefer is not a cheap scripture. It's definitely over $100. Sometimes you might get them on a special and it'd be like $95 or something like that, right? But they're usually over $100. And it's a well put together material wise, with the bindings and all of that, so it's not going to fall apart on you so easily, I should say. Let's see here. Let's go to, what was I? Oh, that's another thing. So if you guys notice, I have my wedding ring on my right hand now, on my index finger here, right? If you guys remember, there was a person here, and maybe some of you even know this, because we were talking about things that are pagan. Well, the wedding ring is not pagan in itself, because we even know that Yahuwah is going to give us a signet ring, right? Like in the parable of the prodigal son, he came back and he gave him a signet ring, right? So the ring in itself isn't pagan, but a wedding ring, where it's put, I was blown away. So I looked this up, and so I'm saying this before all you guys, all 100 and plus of you guys in here, I no longer wear it on my left hand, and I'm going to show you why. let me pull this up here. Let me show you why. Okay. And I was actually shocked when I read it. I was like, what? Let's see, is this the one? Let me find this here. Let's see, is this the one? Ancient. Yes, okay, here we go. Let me show you guys this. I put mine in my right hand. I'll follow you off. No, don't do that. Don't do that, Ak Matthew. Let me show you why. So look, wedding rings. Okay, this is from website Wedding Wire. Okay, Wedding Wire. And it talks about how and why the tradition of wedding rings has changed over time. So we're going to go to wedding rings date back to ancient times. It says, although there's no formal documentation chronicling the earliest engagement rings and the history of wedding rings, historians and jewelers generally agree that the tradition of giving a ring to your lover dates back to ancient Egypt. Wow, right? Wonder why. According to the Geological Institute of America, Egyptian pharaohs wore and gave rings to represent eternity, with the circle reflecting their cultural belief that your soul lives on even after your body is deceased. The Ouroboros ring, I guess that's how you pronounce that, portrayed a common Egyptian motif, a serpent swallowing its own tail. Now we know what that is. I'm sure some of you have seen that in other artwork, like in movies and stuff. Anyways, symbolizing the cycle of life. We also have the ancient Egyptians to thank for the tradition of wearing your wedding ring on your left hand. They believed that the fourth finger on the left hand, now commonly known as the ring finger, you see this, now commonly known as the ring finger, had a vein that connected directly to the heart. This was called the vena amoris, or vein of love. The theory has since been disproven, but it's a romantic, hence the word Roman. We know that comes from Roman, okay? Romantic notion about eternal love that has lasted for millennia. So, this is why I no longer wear it on my left hand. Okay, so that you guys know. Again, I'm not judging anyone when I see them with it on their left hand, but I am no longer wearing it on my left hand. So my wife, I told her about that, and she's like, so what are you saying? Are we getting rid of our rings? I was like, no. So she was like, well, let's wear it on our right hand. I said, okay, I'm down with that. And so that's what we do now. Yes, right? All roads lead to Rome. Well, I guess in this sense, all roads lead to Egypt, which was before Rome. Yeah, it's just amazing how, again, we never think about where some of these traditions and customs come from. We just do it, right? We just do it. I mean, it's like when we were young, and even some of us as we get older and we start doing the whole birthday thing, we just do it because that's what our society does. It's a tradition. We don't realize that it has pagan origins to it, and then we're wearing wizard hats and blowing out the candles to, some mythological being called a genie, and we're wishing for something. We don't think of any of that stuff. So, anyhow, before I was saying where we were going to go, and I saw my hand on my screen, I'm like, oh, I got to tell you guys about this, about the ring. Yeah. Yes, sure, Vanessa. Hold on one second here. It's kind of let me see if I can, let me minimize it so it will be easier for you to see what it says there. Let me back it out a little bit, see if I can get all the wiggly lines out. I think that's probably about the best I'm going to be able to do. Okay. So what do I think about wearing a Pandora charm bracelet? I don't know, Marie. That just the word charm kind of throws me off, because that word charm has some pagan history to it as well. I did look into bracelets because I was thinking of saying, well, if we're not going to wear a wedding ring, maybe a bracelet might be better. But again, it's like everything. It just has all of it. You're welcome, Vanessa. A lot of these things that we do, if you go and look into it, you're going to find that there is a connection to some kind of hedonistic or paganistic practice. I mean, it's just the truth. Yeah, right? Handcuffs, shackles, exactly, Nazareth. But, we cannot just distort the past and say, well, you know what, that's not what it means to me, because that's exactly what Christianity has done with all the paganism things that we have come to be accustomed to. So we can't do the same thing also, right? What I noticed is that when I saw that it said that it was so particular with this whole thing about the wedding ring, that it was on the left hand on their wedding ring finger, and I was like, no way, that is crazy. And that was, someone had shared that with me and said that was pagan. And I was like, you know what? I haven't looked into it. That's why I wasn't convicted. But once I read it, just like many of you, once you see something and you see that it's against Yahuwah and it's a pagan practice, I'm like, whoop, not doing that anymore. I'm done with it. Like a bad habit. I'm throwing it out. I mean, I was at the point where I was getting ready to throw my wedding ring away until Yahuwah revealed to me that, that he gave a signet ring to his son that came back, the whole prodigal son parable. So I was like, well, then rings in itself isn't pagan. It's the understanding of what you're doing with the ring, what it signifies. And so when I saw that it was on the fourth finger on the left hand, I'm like, yep, I am not doing that. Is wearing makeup witchcraft? Okay, so that's a great question. Now, we know in the book of Enoch, it speaks about how the angelic host, the fallen ones, right? They took it upon themselves to teach us things that we weren't supposed to know. And one of those things was cosmetology. Okay, hence it's called Cosmo, from the heavenly realm. These beings that came from the sky taught not only women but men how to exaggerate, to accentuate their eyes, which is why you see this in a lot of hieroglyphs all around the world, including in Egypt, where they're accentuating their eyelids, right? I guess you women call it eyeliner, and it kind of beautifies the eyes, right? And now you're seeing men doing it again like they did in ancient Egypt. Nothing new under the sun, right? These metrosexual dudes. Anyways, long story short, to answer your question, I think too much makeup can be a problem. I don't think, and again, it doesn't tell us that, wearing makeup is evil in its essence. But I think when you're trying to cover up your face to where you're like a totally different person, the exaggeration of the eyes and stuff and again, I'm not trying to be funny, okay, when I share this, but I have been with some women back in the day where I was attracted to the way their face looked because that's the way I met them. They had makeup on. And, spending the night with them, or we take a shower or whatever, and all that stuff comes bleeding off of their face. And I'm like, this person looks totally different. Like, I don't even know the person other than, I know them because I've been talking to them. But the face-wise, it was like I didn't know the person. Yeah, Victoria. Well, again, the truth about a Jezebel, the spirit of Jezebel, people are putting it on things that it's not even connected with. What is the spirit of Jezebel? The spirit of Jezebel was a woman who wants to take control of her man. If you look at Jezebel, with King Ahab, she ran that kingdom. She usurped authority over her man. That is the Jezebel spirit in its essence, in its true form. That is what the spirit of Jezebel is. Okay? Or a woman teaching a man. She is usurping authority in the assemblies, like we read in Revelation chapter 3, I believe it is, or chapter 2. Like these Joyce Myers and Paula Whites and Juanita Bynums, these kind of sisters that are up there calling themselves the leaders of their assembly as pastors. Yeah, that is a Jezebel spirit. But to wear makeup, no. These are things that, again, we can't put it on what it's not. And it has changed where people say, well, this is Jezebel spirit. No, Jezebel spirit, the spirit of Jezebel is to usurp authority. And that's why Jezebel was unalived the way she was unalived. She was literally fed to the dogs, pretty much. Exhaustive concordance. Oh, that's beautiful. Yep, you're gonna love those things. What about wearing jewelry? Okay, so let's go to the scripture on some of these. First Peter, I think it is. Okay, yes. First Peter, also known as Kapha Aleph. Okay, First Peter chapter 3. Women, be subject to your own husbands. Again, if you're not subject to your own husband, that is a Jezebel spirit. Now, to be subject doesn't mean, again, that he is allowed to walk all over you. That's not what it means. Okay, there is this balance that happens between a husband and a wife, right? And you all know this. I don't have to speak it out. You know that the man usually is the head. He should be the head. That's why Yah has made us male. Okay. And then the woman is to support. She is the lover. She's the giver, right? Whereas the man should be the provider and the protector. So anyways, it says, so that if any are disobedient to the word, okay, because the word says that the husband is to be the head over his wife. This is why it says to be subject to your own husbands. Now, it says, they without word might be won by the behavior of their wives. Okay, so let me read that part again, because I broke it all up. In the same way, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that if any are disobedient to the word, they without a word might be won by the behavior of their wives, having seen your blameless behavior in fear. Your adornment should not be outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting on dresses, but the hidden man of the heart, with the incorruptible ornament of a meek and peaceable ruach, or spirit, which is of great value before Elohim. For in this way, in former times, a set-apart woman or women who trusted in Elohim, the Mighty One, also adorned themselves, being subject to their own husbands. Now, why is Peter Kapha saying this? Because Shaul says the same thing, right? Have you ever noticed that, like sometimes, and I used to see this a lot in the so-called churches, where a husband and wife will go to the church and she'll put the pastor above her own husband. That's not right. That is not right. This is why this is being said here, subject to their own husbands. Not to another man, not to your pastor, not to your leader, not to somebody that you look up to. No, the one that you're supposed to be looking up to is your husband. I hope that makes sense. Okay? Just like a man, he shouldn't be putting another woman on a pedestal above you. You're supposed to be on that pedestal in his eyes, not another woman. That creates jealousy. Okay, and so the same thing with a woman who does that with a pastor, because the pastor is leading the flock and all of a sudden she's listening to the pastor more than she's listening to her husband. That should not be. That should not be. That is terrible. So it says, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him master, of whom you became children, doing righteousness, and not frightened by any fear. In the same way, husbands, live understandingly together, giving respect to the wife. Notice that, giving respect, that is honor, to the wife, as to the weaker vessel. What do we mean by the weaker vessel? Physically, and sometimes even emotionally. And as a being as being heirs together of the favor of life. So again, we're all going to be heirs of salvation, where there is no longer male or female. We are all equal in the sight of Yahuwah. There is no longer needing for a helper, because we'll all be equal before the eyes of Yah. We will all be kings and priests in Yah's kingdom, so that your prayers are not hindered. To sum it up pretty much, he says, let all of you be like-minded, sympathetic, loving as brothers, tender-hearted, humble-minded, not returning evil for evil or rivaling for rivaling, but on the contrary, Baruch or Barak, knowing that you were called to this in order to inherit a Baraking, okay, or Baruching. So going back to wearing a whole bunch of jewelry, it should be modest. Everything that we do, be it male or female, it should be in modest apparel. Modesty is the key. And I would say that probably the same for makeup. Modesty, not a lot. Don't be kicking on that stuff on your face, women, like a clown, which just looks weird. You shouldn't do that. And again, I think a lot of this stuff, and we won't know until these angelic hosts are revealed to us, because they're made of fiery stones, right? They have a lot of colors to them, and this is their physical makeup, okay? They're beautiful beings. And so they were teaching Adam's kind, our kind, how to beautify our skin, as if we don't like what Yahuwah has created us to be, right? The same issue as, you know, Susie wanting to be Tommy and Tommy wanting to be Susie. Like there's some kind of mistake here that Yahuwah has created. He doesn't make mistakes. We're the ones that are mistaken. Yasun says, let me see. I don't understand why TikTok does that, where they dim out some of the comments, and I've been getting that just recently. So Yasun, you say, Brother Jimmy, what is the real name of John? Is it Yahukanan or Yohanan? That's a great question. I've seen both of them. Yahukanan sounds like it might be the actual pronunciation. Yohanan might be Aramaic, whereas Yehukanan is probably Abrit or Hebrew, but don't quote me on that. I haven't actually looked into it. But I've heard both. I just haven't looked into it. So that guy says, so will we be married in the kingdom? Well, we know that the Mashiach answered that question when the Pharisees tried to ask, or excuse me, the Sadducees asked that question because they didn't believe in a resurrection. And so they were trying to so-called trip up the Messiah and saying, tell us, and remember they gave him this whole spiel about, well, you know how the Torah says that if a man passes away, and then the Torah says that the man's brother is supposed to take the son, or take the wife and take care of his brother's heirs or his children, his offspring, as if they're his own, right? And so then they started going down the line saying that, well, if all these brothers had died in the resurrection, whose husband will she be, or whose wife will she be in the resurrection? And so Yahusha says, you got it mistaken. You're going to be just like the Malachim, the angels in the heavens, not giving in marriage nor being married. Why? Because there's no need for procreation anymore. The only reason why we even have opposite sex, as we call it here on this earth, is to procreate, was to replenish, right? To fill the earth with more beings like ourselves. Well, Yahuwah, when he created the angels, they didn't have to replenish what he created, because he created them as he saw fit. He created all of them. None of them were born. They were all created. For us, it's different. And it served a purpose here on this earth for this meantime, while we are being created on this earth, or procreating on this earth, that there is going to come a day that we are no longer going to be that way. Everything will be in its eternal state. No more giving in marriage or being married. else have any other comments or questions or something that you guys want to share? Let me turn this heater off here. Let me bring this up to the front here. Irie, you said, Brother Jimmy, when will you be on again this Shabbat? I will be on, normal time, 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And in fact, tomorrow is a Shabbat. For those of you who don't know, tomorrow is Rosh Kadash, so I'll be on tomorrow. Earlier than I was today. It'll probably be, I want to say probably right around 12. And so we'll come together here on TT. And then what I would like to do, as I was sharing yesterday, is once we congregate here, I would like to try out Fanbase for the first time. And so we would leave this platform and we'll all congregate back at Fanbase. I want to see how it works. I want to see if we have anything that we need to work on or what I can expect. So for those of you who are interested, tomorrow I am going to kick in on Fanbase and see what happens. But I'm going to meet here first. And then once we meet here, and then I'm going to sign off. And as soon as I sign off, I'm going to sign on to Fanbase and go live on Fanbase and see how it works so we can all see how this thing works together. Let's see. That guy says, well, a minute. Let's see. Toad the Wet Sprocket says, how does the Father tell us to pray to him? Well, we know that from Matityahu chapter 7, right? And we can go there real quick. We all know that. The Father's Prayer. Some translations word it a little differently, but again, we get the gist. It's pretty much the same. What is that? Oh, that's my mother-in-law's. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm saying 7 is actually in chapter 6. Let's see here. So this is how it reads in the scriptures. It says, the Messiah says, this then is the way you should pray. Our Father, who is in the Shamaim, or in the heavens, let your name be set apart. Let your reign come, let your desire be done on Aretz, or earth, as it is in the Shama. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And do not lead us into trial, but deliver us from the wicked one. Because yours is the reign, some of your translations say kingdom, and the power, and the esteem, forever, so be it. Okay? Shabbat is not tomorrow. Well, the weekly Shabbat is the next day after tomorrow. Tomorrow is Rosh Kadash, also known as the first of the month. Every first of the month, not the calendar that we've been following of the world, but Yah's calendar, every first of the month is called Rosh Kadash, or the head of the month. Okay, and so that is treated as a Shabbat. The only difference is that you can cook. Okay, you're not supposed to work. It's a day unto Yahuwah. Maria, it is not a fast day. Ducey Toro, do you practice sunset to sunset? And if so, why? I do not. I do not do sunset to sunset. Which by your Swank Swank, Rosh Kadash is the first of the month. Rosh meaning head, Kadash meaning renewed. You didn't come up on Fanbase when I checked earlier today. Joseph, put in ambassadors of Yah in there. If not, I will send you a link to connect on there. A lot of people have already found me that are on TT. So you might have to look at maybe the spelling. But I'll send you a link, Joseph. Okay, NM, you'll be working? Okay. Thank you there, Aki Manuel. I'm a little behind. I'm over here reading the messages. You guys are like 25 messages ahead of me. So if I don't see your question, I apologize. I'm just trying to catch up. So you might have to ask your question again or say your comment again. Sorry for that. Oh, you did, Joseph? Okay, I'll send you a link so you can find me. Yes, son, I'll do that. Ian, the new platform is called Fan Base, like a fan that you turn on to cool yourself off of. It's one word, Fan Base, BASE.